The one in Barbados, part 1 and 2, are fantastic episodes to Friends, and I'd say a pretty great way to end the penultimate season. This is, of course, season 9, episodes 23 and 24. They're directed by Kevin Bright, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episodes and share some thoughts. These are actually together on Netflix, so I just watched them back to back. Also, I think today is the last day Netflix is hosting Friends in the UK. It leaves after today, which is devastating. I have bought the season 10 DVD, which is another reason why I decided to watch these back to back rather than trying to work out where the halfway point was, because after today, Friends on Netflix in the UK will be no more, which seems like a terrible decision, but I've heard rumours that it's because they're going on to a different platform. Who knows? Time will tell, but certainly we've come to the end of an era, and if this is how we're ending the era with Netflix, for me, it's pretty delightful. As always, I have grouped my thoughts into parts of the narrative. Everything ties together really well, but I managed to group them into Ross, Rachel, Joey, and Charlie, and then Phoebe, Monica, Chandler, David, and Mike. So I will talk about Phoebe, Monica, Chandler, David, and Mike first, and I'll kind of go through everything that happens there, and then I'll go through everything else that happens separately. And for the most part, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I still don't like certain aspects. By that I mean the whole Rachel and Joey thing. But that being said, in this episode, it was quite sweet. So we'll start off with Phoebe first of all. And Phoebe and David are back together. And David is going to Barbados. They're all going to Barbados to hear Ross do his keynote speech. This was set up in, I think, the previous episode, where he kind of tricked somebody into giving him the opportunity. So this is where we're going now, to Barbados. And Phoebe is talking with Monica about how they're getting there. And she says, or should Mike and I just meet you there? Very subtle response from the audience. I don't know if it just took them a second, as it did for me. When you hear it, it sounds normal because we've had so many episodes of Phoebe with Mike. All of a sudden it's David, and to hear her say Mike, it takes a second to realise what she's just done. And it took a second for Phoebe to realise what she's just said as well. And David then asks Chandler for some advice. And for the first time, it felt like David was one of the gang, or could be one of the gang. And Chandler's very uncomfortable, but to his credit, he does try. He suggests that maybe letting Phoebe know that he'd be open to marriage could be a good thing. It could help their relationship, because Chandler knows that was a bit of an issue with Mike. And David thinks, yes, this is a good idea. I can do that. I'm going to propose to her. It's not quite what Chandler meant. It's a difficult situation as well, because it's not as if David, even I'm doing it. It's not as if Phoebe and David have just started dating. They have a history. So proposing to her while it seems too soon, if hypothetically he's been thinking about this, which I don't necessarily think he has while he's been in Minsk, but in theory, he could have been thinking about this for a long time. So it might not be out of the blue for David. So it's a bit of a difficult situation. And Chandler explains what he did, and Monica tells Chandler it was bad advice. And then we get some suspense there, as we don't really know how this is going to play out, as when Chandler gave the advice, it seems like that would be a really great thing for Phoebe. But then when Monica explains why it's bad advice, it's very clear to us as viewers that this could go either way, and I think it's really building the suspense, and it's really, really well done. Monica has problems of her own, and that is because the humidity is affecting her hair. To be honest, when she first got to Barbados, her hair looks fine. There were some jokes at her expense, but I think her hair looks really good. It looks decent. And maybe later on in the episode, when it gets a little bit bigger and she puts the hat on, it's a different story. It still looks fine. But when she first got there, I thought it looked not too bad, just different. And then Monica does something that I think was maybe a good idea. I'd love to know if anybody has any strong opinions on this either way, but she tells Phoebe. She tells Phoebe what David is planning on doing, because we realise that David is going to do this immediately. And I think it was the right thing to tell Phoebe, because I think it's very clear that it would come out of the blue for Phoebe. But at the same time, is it ever okay to spoil a proposal on the off chance that Phoebe would have been really excited about it? I genuinely don't know. But Phoebe wasn't angry that Monica told her, and I think that's the most important thing. And as she says, bottom line, I love Mike. David, that was Phoebe. That wasn't me that time. That was Phoebe yet again saying the wrong name. And again, it feels too soon after breaking up with Mike. But at the same time, again, she has a history with David. So it's not as if it's kind of a rebound relationship. It wasn't a relationship Phoebe went looking for. David just kind of magically came back into the picture at a time when one could argue Phoebe needed somebody in her life because she was obviously feeling quite sore after the breakdown of the relationship with Mike. So it's so difficult because it's too soon. But is it really? And Monica, completely panicked, phones Mike. And we have a fun conversation between them. And they're in the restaurant. And Mike turns up just as David is about to propose. And needless to say, David's not thrilled about this. They missed an amazing opportunity, though. Because I would have loved if there and then Mike immediately got down on one knee and proposed to Phoebe as David was proposing to her. And here she had these two proposals. It would have been such a wonderful moment for Phoebe. But unfortunately, that's not what they did. What we got was good enough, but I think the shock factor there would have been much better. Ultimately, what does happen is David gives Mike his seat because he's had a long journey. Even when David's trying to be mean to Mike, he's so sweet. And Mike asks Phoebe to marry him, and she says no. And David says, haha, which was so mean, but fair, David. And Phoebe explained she just wanted some kind of commitment. She wasn't looking for a proposal, which I think was the most realistic way to take this. Because I don't think Mike was actually ready to propose. He just wasn't ready to lose Phoebe. So I think that was the best outcome. And also I think Phoebe and Mike deserve a more magical, less spur-of-the-moment proposal anyway. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but obviously you don't want your proposal story to be, well, I was being proposed to by somebody else, and then Mike came into the room and ruined that guy's day. So fair enough. I think things played out the way they should have done. And again, because Mike was going to propose, I do think it would have been funnier if he got down on one knee as David was proposing. I think that would have been funnier. It would have been more impactful. But nevertheless, what we got was decent. And then wrapping up the rest of the story involving these characters, Monica and Mike end up playing ping pong. Monica gets an injury and she takes, or Chandler takes over, and he does really well. And Monica wanted to know why Chandler never said he was good at ping pong. And she suddenly decides they can do couples tournaments and things, and that's why he never said anything. So everything there was wrapped up really nicely. And then we come to Ross, Charlie, Joey, and Rachel. And obviously everybody is there to hear Ross's speech. And as soon as Ross gets there, people are recognizing him, not Joey. Things are different, and it's really good fun. And somebody is a fan of Ross's, and she meets Ross, and she happens to mention that she doesn't have a television, to which Joey responds, "What's all your furniture pointed at?" Which I think is a really valid point. And Ross and Charlie then spend time together. She likes his speech, and Chandler comes into the room to check his emails. He opened an email. It had a virus, or a suspected virus. Ross's laptop has been wiped. This is why we email backups to ourselves. To be honest, I am really surprised that Ross at no point thought to email himself a copy. I'm assuming when this aired in, 2003, there were no clouds or anything. But certainly emailing yourself a copy wouldn't have been that much of a difficult thing to do. So this one's also kind of on Ross. That being said, we needed him to lose it so that the episode could progress, because Charlie actually stays up all night with Ross trying to rewrite his speech, and it seems like they've done it. That obviously gives them a reason to spend a lot more time together. It also gives Joey and Rachel a chance to spend time together. They go and crash a convention, they have a really good time, and Charlie and Ross get to know each other a bit more. She asks Ross, "You've been married more than once?" to which he kind of responds no. But it turns out Charlie was engaged to a guy who turned out to be gay. And of course, Ross was married to Carroll, who turned out to be gay. So they have another thing they can bond over, and it's kind of a sweet moment, I guess. And then Joey, later on, tells Rachel that he and Charlie actually broke up. Not too much happens in that time between Charlie and Ross together, and then Joey and Rachel together. Charlie and Joey are going to spend the evening together, or whatever is left of the time that they have. But obviously, they realised that they're just too different. And it was not the most emotional breakup, but it's clear that Joey, having gone from woman to woman to woman, I think he is at a point in his life where he wants to be with somebody long term. I think it's very clear that he is now more interested in that long term relationship, and this one didn't work out, and it's upsetting to see. And he goes to tell Rachel, and well, it is awkward. But finally, Joey realises that Rachel has been having thoughts about him. And Joey, despite the fact that he has wanted this for so long, explains that it can't happen. Because he's had time to think about it, and he's realising he can't do that to Ross. Which is a big thing. That is incredibly selfless of Joey. And I think that that's the right attitude to take. It is emotional, but we do have some comedy when Joey leans against the door and Rachel opens the door and Joey falls in backwards. There's also a really fun blooper. Well, not really a blooper, more of just a general outtake from that scene, which I won't spoil, but definitely worth looking out for. So while, as I said multiple times I've mentioned, I do not like this whole Rachel and Joey thing. I just feel like the writers were clutching at straws, trying to find a storyline, maybe trying to find something that could be emotional. But up until this episode, I think it's just been really stupid, really pointless. But it actually does serve a purpose in this episode, particularly with what happens next, because we go back to Charlie and Ross, and Charlie is just about to tell Ross how she feels about him, but is distracted as it's time to throw the keynote speaker into the pool, which is apparently a thing they do every year after the conference, after the speech, and they end up running away, and that gives them a chance to have some alone time. And Charlie eventually kisses Ross. Ross kisses her back briefly, but then says that he won't do it to Joey. But then apparently his morals disappear as he ultimately does kiss her again, and Joey witnesses it. So he goes back to Rachel's room, and he knocks on the door, and he kisses her. And honestly, the situation sucks for everybody. On the face of it, everybody should be happy. Ross is now with Charlie, and Joey gets to kiss Rachel. But it just feels so wrong. Everybody's actions feel so wrong. Maybe Rachel's not so much. And I guess maybe Joey's not so much. But at the same time, Ross is definitely not doing the right thing. And that's not great to see, particularly after we see Joey explaining he can't do this to Ross. But if Ross can do it to him, why should he deny himself of what he and Rachel both want? Does what happens in Barbados stay in Barbados? Well, we'll have to find out in the next episode. Really looking forward to watching the beginning of season 10. Also emotional to be rewatching season 10 again, because just the whole thing, just knowing it's coming to an end, it's the final season, it's difficult. It's beautiful, but it's difficult. But we'll talk more about what happens next week. And for now, I'm pleased to say that the one in Barbados, part 1 and part 2, are brilliant episodes. Definitely makes me question how I feel about Joey and Rachel, because as I said, for the most part, still don't like the idea of the storyline, but I think it does play an important role and questions morals in this episode. I think it's quite strong and well delivered. And of course, we had David, and now we have Mike again. What's going to happen there? Well, we will find out soon. Definitely a decent episode, or 2 episodes, and a very satisfying end to season 9 of Friends.